Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run for the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days as we have now exited out of the heat wave. We have seen 7 consecutive days of 30 plus degrees. Today could just about nudge the high 20s in a few spots, but now most areas are back into more of an autumnal pattern, and that is going to be the theme for this upcoming week. There is the risk, as we will see from the UKV and some of the longer range runs, that we could see a bit of warmer weather towards the end of the week, but really pushing the mid-20s perhaps. Nothing compared to what we've seen the last 7 days or so, and a lot of the models in the longer term, as we see from the GFS, GM, Eastern GF, and the ensembles, perhaps has some really quite intense low pressure systems moving in, courtesy of ex-tropical systems, not only providing lots of energy towards the jet stream and general North Atlantic area, but could actually directly impact us once they turn extratropical and back towards a standard Atlantic low. Some really quite lively systems could be moving in the next week to 10 days. I'll have to keep a very close eye on it. The issue we've got is a lot of these tropical systems, their next couple of days is not even well forecasted. So the next week to 10 days, there could be some big changes. So there's a lot of uncertainty with the next couple of weeks. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. So you start on the live radar, you can see we've still got quite a few showers around at the moment, but nowhere near as lively as it was yesterday, where we saw some severe thunderstorms for northern and eastern areas. Not only seeing large hail, extremely frequent lightning, we also saw some extremely photogenic cloudscapes with wall clouds, and even reports of perhaps some weak supercells developing in places where we're seeing rotation, proper rotation within the storm system. Some areas, especially up into the northeast, so a lot of images out of the Newcastle area, seeing some significant flooding, flash flooding that is, as those storms move through. And you can see the remnants of those storms now across Scandinavia, actually still producing some real heavy rain and perhaps still some lightning up here. But we're now replaced that with much fresher air mass for many areas where the temperatures are lower, also less energy. So just seeing moderate areas of rainfall along this weather front. However, to the south and east of these showers we're seeing across parts of the Midlands, we're still just about hanging on to the warm air. As of 2 PM, you can still see some darker oranges, some lighter reds appearing in East Anglia, the East Midlands, down into the southeast, and this is where we could still see 27 or 28 degrees this afternoon in a few isolated spots. It is a much fresher feel overall, so nowhere near as humid, but still relatively warm. Well above average, but it is slowly decreasing, and most likely by tomorrow all areas are back into the teens, maybe just about low 20s. If we do actually put on the past 24-hour precipitation, we'll be able to see where those big severe thunderstorms moved through yesterday, and you can see it here across Newcastle. We saw some severe storms moving out here from the Irish Sea, and yeah, some intense rainfall here, seeing many inches of rainfall. And we saw some big storm systems through East Midlands as well, and elsewhere you can see some darker patches in Yorkshire and Wales. We also saw some more isolated thunderstorms, the areas across the East Midlands to East Anglia and for the far north of England near the Scottish borders. Those more multi-celled systems where we did see the intense frequent lightning and large areas of heavy rain. Elsewhere, more pop-up storms. And you see Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and Scotland saw some heavy storms as well. But more of this rain fell in longer periods of prolonged heavy rain than in sort of half an hour, which some of this rainfall across the north fell in. You can see some areas completely missed out. For example, most of London, most of East Anglia, to the east of those main storms that went through sort of the Peterborough area, and down to the southeast and southwest, missed out on those storms completely in the afternoon. The southwest did see some rain and storms in the morning, but the afternoon did miss out, and we did see some more prolonged rainfall across southern areas here, sort of the Oxford to Southampton region, and that was from decaying thunderstorms before they reignited inland further northward. So we saw some hugely variable conditions yesterday, extremely lively where those thunderstorms did occur, and I do hope anyone who was caught out on them hasn't been too badly disrupted. Now if you do go over to NetWeather, probably the last time we have a look at this, as we are coming to the end of the heat wave. But we'll have a look at the latest temperatures. It has turned 2 p.m, and I will just quickly refresh the page. And you can see a couple 2 p.m. observations have come in, but mostly still looking at the 1 p.m. observations here. And you can see widely 24 to 26 in those eastern areas of the top temperatures. So much cooler than yesterday and the previous 6 days, but still relatively warm, still above average, still a decent day, just nowhere near as hot and as muggy as it has been recently. Could just about reach 27 or maybe a 28 by 3 or 4 p.m. But likely tomorrow, not going to get much above the low 20s at best. Now, if you have a look at the latest UKV, you can see the remnants of those thunderstorms out into parts of the North Sea there. And through the rest of this afternoon and evening, a few heavy showers around through the Midlands perhaps, and some longer, prolonged spells of rain further behind. And that weather front with those longer spells of rain will continue to slowly progress southeastwards and could give some heavier rain in the far southeast tomorrow. Maybe a few heavy thundery showers breaking out in isolation, but mostly thicker cloud and light to moderate rainfall before eventually clearing through Tuesday afternoon, giving us all fresher conditions. Into Wednesday, we start to see a proper Atlantic low move back in, something we haven't seen in a couple of weeks now, but a big low pressure system with lots of heavy rain, and it will give widespread heavy rain with windy conditions for northern and western areas before slowly spreading through on Thursday. Into Friday, though, we do see a bit of an interesting pattern. We do see a bit of a split in the UK. We've got cooler air to our north, but high pressure trying to build into the south. You can see this from this drier air with more sunshine. And it's actually building some quite warm conditions in. And you can see a few thunderstorms and heavy rain developing on the western edge. But in the southeast corner, through Friday and Saturday, you could even see the mid-20s, as I said at the start of the video, as we do see a little push of warm air. Nothing amazing, nowhere near compared to the conditions last week, but could even get the 15-degree isotherm in at 850 HPA, which would give temperatures around the 30-degree mark in midsummer. But as we are now into early September, or the middle of September by the time this occurs, we are likely to see at best mid-20s. And we can see that from the upper air temperatures. Very warm air, slowly getting pushed away at the moment, and by tomorrow afternoon, pretty much everyone, bar from the far southeast corner, will be in fresher, average to below average air mass. Into Wednesday, we eventually start to see a warmer sector move back in, but associated with that rain and cloud, so it won't feel all too warm. And then eventually by Thursday and even Friday, start to push in some warmer air again, 13, 14, maybe even the 15-degree isotherm moving in, giving us some small areas of warmth there. Big temperature contrast, so not only could we see slightly warmer conditions in the southeast, back towards the mid-20s perhaps, but along this boundary through Wales, the Midlands, northern England, we could see some extremely heavy rain with almost a 10-degree temperature contrast there in the space of maybe about 50 miles or so. We'll have to see that nearer the time. If you do look at the max temperatures, though, you can see at best this afternoon, seeing 24, 25 from the UKV, but we're already hitting that. So maybe get to 26, 27, or even an isolated 28. As we head into tomorrow, though, still could be a little bit muggy in the far southeast. Could see a 22 or 23, but widely we're into the teens, almost 10, widely 10 to as high as 15 degrees cooler than it was this time last week, or even just on Saturday in some of these areas. Into Wednesday, again, another relatively average day, 20 to 22 at best in the southeast, but widely mid to high teens. Into Thursday, starting to warm up in the southeast as that warmer air mass moves in, 23, 24, but to the north of that dividing line in the air masses, mid-teens. That's the same into Friday, again, 24, 25, maybe a 26 across the far southeast, but parts of the North Midlands into northwest England, low teens, a 10-degree temperature contrast there, not only at the upper air level, but at the surface level as well. That really could fuel any rainfall we do see there. Need to keep a very close eye on that for the end of this working week. And you can see that overnight temperatures as well, 9 or 10 degrees in the northwest, 18 or 19 degrees in London. Huge temperature contrasts. Now, if we do look at the longer range, we'll see how more of this does evolve, as those temperature contrasts could play a big pattern, or play a big role in the overall pattern in the next couple of weeks, as we could see some really severe lows moving in, powered by big temperature contrasts. Now, you can see low pressure moves through for the end of this week. We do see a brief high pressure system build in the far southeast, pulling up a bit of a southeasterly breeze, and that does bring in some briefly warmer air. However, towards the weekend and start of the next week, look, big lows out in the North Atlantic towards Iceland, and it picks up an ex-tropical system out of the North Atlantic and throws it our way, giving extremely lively conditions that, by the looks of it, would become a named storm, or will continue its naming, as it most likely would have been named as a tropical storm or hurricane. And look at that, 956 millibars, I think, towards the centre of that low. Extreme conditions from that. As this ex-tropical system moves in, the wind gusts are ridiculous, up to 140 or 150 kilometers per hour. That is close to 80 or 90 miles per hour. And the sustained winds, 10-meter winds, are getting up towards 50 knots, so up towards 40, 50 miles per hour. So pretty much tropical storm characteristics. In terms of the actual wind speeds here, again, it is a Atlantic system. As you can see, it's got a warm sector and a cool sector out towards the west. You can see it's better on the European view. Warm sector to the east, cold sector to the west. So it is a typical Atlantic low, but having come out of the remnants of an ex-tropical storm, then, yeah, it could be an extremely lively system here towards day 10. So it is almost in the reliable frame. I'd say day 7 and inwards, we'd start to say there's a good chance of this happening. But out towards day 10, a little bit more uncertainty. And as we head beyond this, we stay in a relatively westerly flow. But eventually high pressure tries to build in the longer term, actually fueled by another ex-tropical system that pumps warm air towards Greenland. And it actually helps build high pressure back in, settling us down briefly towards the end of September. So hugely variable conditions. Could be very unsettled at times, very stormy, but also could be very dry and settled. All dependent on how these tropical storms and hurricanes do impact the North Atlantic and jet stream over the next couple of weeks. If you do look at the GM, see if that has a very lively system at day 10. Again, a westerly flow continues to move in for this week. High pressure does build in for the end of the week. Briefly warmer air in the southeast before a big low moves in. Not quite as severe as the GFS, and it does pick up that ex-tropical system to our south, but it's nowhere near as big, and it has a more southerly tracking pattern down towards the Bay of Biscay into France, so it would be very unsettled, would be pretty stormy, but nowhere near as severe as the GFS was showing. As you can see here, the centre of the low is still pretty potent, down towards 976 millibars, but not into the 950s like the GFS was showing. If you do look at the ECMWF, again, a westerly flow continue to move in at the moment. More unsettled conditions moving in, briefly high pressure towards the end of the week, with briefly warmer air in the southeast. And then towards day 10, it does go fairly unsettled, but the remnants of that ex-tropical system, you can see it down here into the North Atlantic, just gets mixed up in the jets and doesn't really do much. It sort of gets squeezed away by high pressure, and instead we're in a westerly flow, generally unsettled conditions, generally a pretty strong jet stream, with low pressure moving in. You can see lots of rainfall coming in off the Atlantic, but nowhere near as stormy and nowhere near as dangerous as especially the GFS, but even the GEM was showing at times. So very lively conditions are possible as we head towards the middle third of September, around that 15th to 20th of September time. It could be very lively indeed into next week, but at this stage there is a lot of uncertainty. If that GFS run came off, it would be pretty horrible, and I'm sure we'd see multiple yellow warnings, even amber warnings, perhaps even red warnings if you're seeing gusts of 90 or 100 miles per hour like that was suggesting. But I must say, we'll be on the very extreme end of the ensemble members. And you can see the ensemble members here, they have got a lot of scatter from the latest GFS. Even towards the end of this working week, some still going for cooler conditions, while the majority are warmer, up towards that 15-degree point. But it is accompanied by rain. That's the other caveat with that. As I said, on the UKV, it is going to produce a lot of rain on that boundary. And even if it doesn't immediately impact London, it probably will, as that warm air does eventually move away. And as the longer term, temperatures do recover towards average again, but lots of precipitation. The sea level pressure could be dropping pretty low in the longer term, some real big dips in the early 20s of September. We're not seeing that from the GFS here because the centre of the low is well to our west, even though the GFS is very unsettled. And you see the 10-metre winds, some quite lively conditions here. Again, London most likely won't be the biggest impacted area. Glasgow, for example, higher winds and sea level pressure getting lower as well. And also remember here down to 971 millibars, which is very deep for Glasgow. So we will have to see, But yeah, it could be very lively in that longer term. Finally, ECMWF ensemble members. If we do go back towards London, you can see a big spike in temperatures towards the end of this week, but nowhere near as high as the GFS was showing, interestingly. Maybe towards 10 degrees or maybe lower teens, but nowhere near as consistent as the GFS or the UKV. Interesting seeing the disparity there, but the longer term is in pretty good agreement, generally around average, with lots and lots of rainfall. So it's going to be very unsettled and perhaps pretty stormy middle to end of September. Huge contrast to last week where it's been insanely hot and insanely dry, apart from the thunderstorms, of course, yesterday. Could be all turning on its head as we do progress, bringing more classic stormy autumnal conditions. But things are all to play for, and it does really all depend on those Atlantic systems, those tropical systems, and how they do move into the North Atlantic and how they do affect the jet stream. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Next few days don't look too bad. Will be rain around. Temperatures will be all right. So do enjoy that if you have disliked the heat and humidity, as things could be turning a little bit more lively as we do head towards the weekend and next week. As I said, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.